In this video, we're going to start looking at the skills necessary to do what's called a cost volume profit analysis, or CVP analysis. This is a branch of financial analysis that studies the relationship between expenses, sales volume, and profitability. CVP analysis is an important business decision-making tool because it can help predict the effect of cutting overhead or raising prices on a company's net income. Three things that you're going to look at are variable expenses, which change in proportion to the volume of production; fixed expenses, which is expenses that must be paid regardless of sales volume; and then mixed expenses, which is a combination of the fixed and variable expenses. We're going to explore the break-even point, and because of that, many times the CVP analysis is called a break-even analysis because it's the point where the total revenue equals total expenses. And we're going to find the break-even point with a what-if analysis. A what-if analysis lets you explore the impact of changing different values in a worksheet. You can use the what-if analysis to explore the impact of changing financial conditions on a company's profitability. We're going to start out with what's called goal seek in the What Analysis tab of Excel. So if you go onto the Data tab, you'll see a grouping called What If Analysis. Drop it down, go to Goal Seek. Now, you're going to have to decide what cell to set. We are going to set cell C28. So you want to set cell C28. You can type it in or click on it. Okay, we're going to set it to the break-even point. So the break-even point is 0. So to value 0. By changing what cell? We're going to change the units sold. So that is actually C27. And then we're going to run the goal seek. It found a solution, and that completes the goal seek for the break-even point. A data table is an Excel table that displays the results from several what-if analyses. The table consists of input cells and result cells. The input cells are the cells whose values would be changed in a what-if analysis. The result cells are cells whose values are impacted by the changing input values. In Excel, you can use a one-variable data table or a two-variable data table. In a one-variable data table, you will specify one input cell and any number of result cells. The range of possible values for the input cell is entered in the first row or column of the data table, and the corresponding result values appear in the rows or columns. One-variable data tables are particularly useful in business to explore how changing a single input value can impact several financial results. We're going to start with the one variable. Okay, so in the one variable table, we have it set up on the spreadsheet, and the very first thing that we have to do is we have to enter a formula to reference. And so we're going to do that by putting in the corner here, we're going to click into E5, and we're going to put equal, and we can either type in or click on C5 because our input reference will be units sold. Hit enter, and it is referencing the units sold. Then we have to have total sales, total expenses, and gross profit. So again, we're going to put in the cells we want to reference. So in F5, I'm putting equal, and it's C20. So again, I could either click on it or type it in. I'm going to go to G5 equals, and now I'm going to C21. And then H, I'm going to do equals, and I'm going to do C22. All right, that gives us our row inputs, and we had our column, which are the units sold. next thing that we're going to do is we select the table. We go to Data, What If Analysis, and select Data Table. This is a one variable data table, so we only put in one variable. The other one will not have anything in it. And how do we know which one we want? Well, the row input is being referenced. That we don't want to be a variable to change. We want the units sold to change with these variables so that we can see how the combination together it impacts making the changing up the units sold. So we know that the variable then is going to be our column. So we don't put anything in the row. We go to column, and in the column we're going to put the cell to reference, which is C5. So I'm going to click on the units sold C5, and I'm going to click OK. And then Excel now does the what if analysis, and I'm able to look at this and be able to see how total sales would be impacted by the different amounts of units sold listed in the column. Now we're going to do what's called a two variable data table. Okay, so we're going to do a two variable. A two variable data table lets you view the relationship between two input cells such as price and units sold. Unlike a one variable data table, a two variable data table can display only a single result value, such as net income. So, in this table right below the one variable one, we're going to do the two. Okay, we already have our reference cell put in there for us. We have the dollar amounts in our row, and we have the units sold in our column again. So we're going to run our two variable data table by selecting the data table, going to data, doing what if analysis, data table again, but this time we're doing a two variable. And because we're doing a two variable, that means we need to put in the two variables, and we need to see which ones they are. So we know which one to choose by looking at what we're trying to analyze. The row is going to be the dollar amounts. So that's actually C6, the price per unit. So I'm going to click in C6. The column again is the units sold, so I'm clicking in C5. I'm going to run the data table by clicking OK, and I now have all the amounts put in there for me. As you can see at this point, it's very easy for me to go across and see at what point we have a break-even point depending on the price versus the units sold. So if you look across, you'll see at $30 and selling 20,000 units, we break even between $28.50 and $30. At $30, we're actually making $19,000 in profit. At $28.50, we're in the negative $11,000. So we break even between those two amounts. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we can also do what's called custom formatting. And this helps us be able to read the data table better. Okay, it's not required, but it's a nice thing to do as far as helping you do the analysis because it lets you see what something is very easily. So I'm going to go up here, and where E14 is, there is the dollar amount here, which is C22, and it's actually gross profit. So that I wouldn't have to keep looking over here to see what it is, I can do that custom formatting by selecting the cell, doing a right click, format cell, make sure I'm going down to custom, and then in the box you type in whatever you want your custom name to be. So in our case, we want it to be units sold / price. So I have to put quote marks because that tells it that it's a literal string of words. Okay, and that's exactly what it needs to put in for that formatting. So I've got the quote, and I'm going to put in units sold. Okay, and you need to put it in exactly like what it's showing you in the instructions. So units sold slash price, and then another double quote. Once you've done that, click OK, and you'll notice it changes it so that we see the words. But again, if you look in the formula, it's still referencing C22. So if C22 changes, the amount here that's used in the data table would change. But we know by looking at it that that's the units sold slash price for the column and rows. Next, we're going to look at how to create a scatter chart with straight lines. All right, so we're going to go now to the wall units worksheet. On this one, we're now going to select E4 through G14. Okay, so E4 through G14. Okay, and we're going to look at charting a break-even analysis. So we're going to go to Insert, and I'm bringing up all charts. I'm going to do the scatter chart. Put my mouse over it. I can read the different kinds. I want the scatter chart with straight lines. I'm going to click OK. I now have the scatter chart I need. Next, I'm going to take and move that scatter chart down so that way I can actually put it into the cells right underneath it. All right, so I'm going to move that down by selecting it. And I'm going to put it in. When it says in, make sure it's in cell E15 and H28. So this one, I got to make sure it's an H28. All right, it tells you to do a few other things like remove the chart title, and these are all things that you have done before. Add a vertical axis. So you can add a vertical axis, change the name of the vertical axis to sales and expenses. Okay, so you'll add the names to each one of these axes. And then the other thing that you're going to do is you're going to change the minimum bounds and the maximum bounds. And so you do that by, you can select the one that you're wanting to change the bounds on. Make sure to catch it so that you have it selected. And then you can format the axis. That's going to give you all your options. You'll see over here the minimum, the maximum. The minimum being 300,000. So I'm going to put that in here. And once I make sure I have the right amount of zeros here. And then I'm going to go through 550,000. Okay. All right. And so it changes my minimum and maximum bounds that way. And then also to change the number. So if you go down, scroll down a little, you'll see I can change it to currency and then go to 0 decimal places. Okay, so that's 0 decimal places that way. Alright, once you're finished with what you want to use that for, you can change over. Okay, you also need to do the horizontal axis. You need to change the minimum and the maximum bounds on that one as well. And then you also want to change the color options to color 14. Then you're going to go to design and make sure to choose that color 14. In this video, we're going to develop financial scenarios with Scenario Manager. Many financial analyses explore the impact of several input values on several different results. Because data tables are limited to 2 input cells, you must create a scenario to perform a what-if analysis with more than two input cells. A scenario is the defined set of values for different cells grouped under a common name. Scenarios are limited to a maximum of 32 changing cells, so there is a limitation. So in Excel, we're going to create two scenarios for the data in the wall units worksheet based on the data shown in Table 1 of your instructions. Okay, so we're in wall units right now. And we're going to create it by going to Data. Okay, make sure that you click out of the actual chart that you created before, because if you don't, it'll be grayed out, and all it is because it's selected. So click, make sure to click off of it, click Data, What If Analysis, Scenario Manager. Alright, so in Scenario Manager, we're going to add two scenarios. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit Add. Okay, the name of this one, okay, is going to be, let's see, in Scenario 1 is going to be Standard Materials. So, Standard Materials. Okay, in the changing cells for Standard Materials, C12, so you can, again, you can either click on it or you can type it in. So C12 and C15. Okay, so C12 are variable cost per unit and our total fixed cost. All right, once you have that, you're going to click OK. And then you have to put your inputs. So in this case, we're going to put in the values for each of the changing cells. And you can see the scenario is going to be 33.75 for the wall unit variable cost. And it's going to be 175,000 for the wall unit's fixed cost. Okay, once you have those in, okay, you could add more if you had them, but we only have two in this particular scenario. So I'm going to click OK, and you can see that you have Standard Materials added. You're going to do the same thing for the green materials. So you're going to add, call it Green Materials. Same changing cells. Click OK. And again, you're going to put in the wall unit variable cost, which in this case now is 42.50. So 42.50. So $42.50. And then we're going to do 225,000. And click OK. So you've created two scenarios. Alright, and so we're going to go ahead then, and you'll see your standard. You can hit close, and if you want to go back and forth to see what difference it makes with the two different scenarios, you can. But right now we're going to go ahead and we're just going to click close. In this video, we're going to make a scatter chart with straight lines. So first we're going to select our data, E6 through J14. Then we're going to go to Insert. I'm going to bring up all charts. I'm going to Scatter, Straight Lines, and I'm going to click OK. Alright, you're going to position it so that the left corner is in cell E15 and the right one is in J28. So J28. Alright, then you're going to remove the title. You're going to reposition the chart legend to the right of the chart. Okay, so again we can look at some of our elements here. So we have our legend, and we're going to put it to the right of the chart. We're going to add a title net income to the vertical axis. Okay, so we're going to put in net and so net income. And on our horizontal axis, we are going to put in units sold. Okay, and then we're going to do our minimum bounds and our maximum bounds for the vertical axis. So I'm going to format the axis so that I can do my minimum, which is going to be set to 150,000. And my maximum is going to be 25,000. Okay. And I'm going to have a currency with 0 decimals. Okay, so we got that. Alright, and then we'll check it, make sure. Okay, that looks okay. Then we're going to do our horizontal axis. Okay, so our horizontal. Same thing, put a minimum and maximum. And our minimum is going to be 3,000. And our maximum is going to be 7,500. Alright, and then we're going to do change the names of our series. So in the scatter and straight line chart, we're going to actually change the series names here. Chart with straight lines. Okay, so to do that, we need to be on the chart, go up to Design, select the data, go to Edit, and the first one we're going to set the series name to cell F5 and click OK. And you can see that way you can change each one of the series. And this one will set to G5. And then series 3 is H5. Four is I5. Okay. So number 4 is going to be set to I5. Oops. Right there. I5. And then series 5 is going to be J5. And that would be the last one. Solver finds the numeric solution to a problem involving several input values. For example, Solver can be used to find the combination of input values that maximizes profits. It can also be used to find a set of input values that minimizes costs. or it can act like goal-seek and find input values required to match a given result. The first thing that you have to do if you want to use Solver is you may have to activate it on your machine. So to do that, first thing you would do is check to see if you have it. Under Data, you'll see I have Solver already. If you do not have it, what you would need to do is go to File, Options, go down to Add-ins, and then to the bottom go to Go. You need to check the box that says Solver Add-in and then click OK. Once you do that, then you will be able to see Solver under your Data tab over on the right hand side. Alright, so with Solver we're going to look for the optimal solution to a problem. So in this one we're going to run Solver to minimize the value in cell F11, total cost, okay, on the custom clock suppliers worksheet. So custom clock suppliers worksheet, and we're going to run Solver to minimize the value in cell F11. Okay, so we're going to minimize it from F11. Okay, so that would be the total cost. Right, our changing cells will be E5 through C5 through E5. So let's go to Data. We're going to go ahead and open up Solver. Okay, we know our objective is to minimize the value in cell F11. So make sure that you are in Set Objective, and you're going to click on F11. Okay, so our objective there is to minimize the value in cell F11, which is total cost. We're going to adjust the number of units. Okay, so that becomes our changing cells, because that's where we're adjusting the number of units. So that's cells C5 through E5. So C5 through E5. Alright, now that we have our objective, we know we're minimizing, so we need to make sure the minimize is checked here, the little option box. We're changing the units produced, C5 through E5, and now we're going to put in our constraints. Okay, so our constraints are going to be added, and we're going to add F5 has to be equal to 5,500. So we're going to look at F5, and we're going to make it here. So if we drop this little box down, we find equal, and it's 5,500. Okay, we're going to add another constraint because we have a few of them to be able to put on there. All right, we're going to add a constraint for F11. So we're going to add, and that's going to be F11. And our constraint for F11 is that it's going to be less than or equal to, so less than or equal to, which is what it defaulted to, 560,000. Adding another one, we're going to add on those changing cells that we did before, we're going to put a constraint. So a constraint on the units produced, which is C5 through E5. And we're going to make that less than or equal to 3,500. And we have another one. The constraint is that it must be an integer. You have to have a whole number. So we need to do again C5 through E5. And this time we drop the box down, and there's one called INT, that's for integer. You click on that and it will put the words integer in the box for you. Now we have our constraints. Constraints are really important, and they're one of the hardest things that you need to think about when you run Solver, because to optimize a problem you have to look at what is your goal, what is your objective, okay, what you're changing, but then you need to know what kind of constraints you have, because normally there's always constraints. Think about money. How many people, like if you have a business, do you have unlimited money? No, if you have a certain amount of money that you can spend, that's a constraint. Okay, if you have to pay a certain amount of money for something, that's a constraint. So we always have constraints on us, and so you have to account for those if you want to do an optimization problem and be able to get the best results. All right, so we have our constraints in. Once you have those in, click OK, and you'll be able to see your constraints, double check them, and try to make sure that you've got the right amount in there before you run Solver. All right, so we're going to run Solver now. We're happy with that. We're going to leave it on GRG, nonlinear solving method. Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and run Solver by clicking down here where it says Solve. Okay, you'll get a dialog box then that says Solver found a solution. That's good. That's exactly what we wanted to happen. Okay, and so we have that dialog box. And once we've done that, then we can go ahead and return to the dialog box there. So we're going to go ahead. We'll click on OK and then return to the Solver dialog box. Now we're going to save our model. Okay, so the next thing is save the model to the range B15 through B22, and that's going to save our parameters. Okay, you want to make sure that you have the amount that you want, which is this 515, okay, in there on your set objective. Go to your load save, select where you want it to go, B15 through B22, and then click on Save. And that will save the parameters that way. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the Solver dialog box. The next thing that you're going to do is go to the All Products worksheet. And on the All Products worksheet, you're going to open up Scenario Manager, and you're going to create a scenario summary report. All right, so we've got All Products, Data, What If Analysis. Under the What If Analysis, we're going to go ahead and create a Scenario Manager summary. So we're going to go to Summary. Okay, and then make sure that you've got C18 through E18, which I do by default. And then go ahead and you've got the choice would be Scenario Summary here. Click OK. This is going to give us our scenario summary. Okay, this report will summarize the impact of the following three scenarios: status quo, outsourcing manufacturing, and raise prices 5%. Then we're going to go back to the All Products worksheet again, and this time we're going to do a scenario pivot table report. So it's kind of the same process. We're going to go to Data, What If, Scenario Manager, Summary. This time we're going to pick the scenario pivot table report. Again, make sure that our cells are right. They are. Click OK. And now you have a scenario pivot table report. Okay, and then you're going to do a little bit of formatting of this report. And you're going to do some things like remove the filter from the pivot table. So if you went over here, you'll notice you can remove fields just like you've done with other pivot tables. Okay, you can change the number format. So, for example, you can drop the box down, go to Value Field Settings, Number Format, and then you can change it to currency with 2 decimal places. And we have currency with 2 decimal places. Okay. and you would do each one of the three that it tells you to. So profit per unit sold, profit per unit sold, wall units, the desktop, and the custom. Then in cell A1, you're going to enter a value, all product scenario pivot table, and you're going to format that cell with the title cell style. So you're going to put in a name in A1, and you're going to format that cell with title cell style. Okay, so you're going to write in the words, and then you're going to do your cell styles, the cell styles, and you're going to pick the title cell style. So you go down and you would pick the title cell style. Okay, so you'd have your all products. Let's see, all products scenario pivot table. Scenario. Okay, so you have your title, and then you can compare it to the final figures that's in the instructions that way.